In section 5.4, when we learn how to graph complex numbers, we learned that we still have a horizontal line, and instead of calling it the x-axis, we call it the real number axis. In the same way that the x-axis is positive to the right of 0 and negative to the left of 0, that's still true. And we have the y-axis now being called the imaginary axis. And in the same way that up is positive on the y-axis and down is negative on the imaginary axis, that's still true. Where they intersect is where everything is equal to 0. So if we have a standard complex number in the form a plus bi, a is the real part of the number and bi is the imaginary part of the number. So with that said, let's graph a specific number. Okay, let's graph -7 plus I. -7 is the real part, so we're going to graph it on the real axis. Negative means to the left, and -7 would be right here. -7 would be right there on the real axis, but then it says that I have to, that's just the real part. The imaginary part would be plus I, or plus 1I, so I have to go up 1 on the imaginary axis. And when I do, I'm going to place a dot right there. -7 on the real and up 1 on the imaginary. So that would be -7 plus I for that dot. Let's do one in another color. Let's do one, let's just do an imaginary. Think of it as if we had an imaginary number 4i, think of that as the 0 being the real part. 0 plus 4i would be the same thing. So since there is no movement on the real axis, we don't go left or right, and then we go up 4 on the imaginary axis. So our dot would go up 4 on the imaginary axis. That would be where we would put 4i. Okay, let's do another one. What if we needed to graph 5 minus 6i? 5 is the real part, so we go to the right on the real axis, 5, and then we go down 6 on the imaginary axis. 5 to the right and down 6 on the imaginary. So that would be 5 minus 6i. And of course you could be asked to just graph a number on the real axis that has no imaginary part. If you were asked to graph +8, for instance, you would simply go to the right 8 on the real axis and put your dot here. That would just be 8. The rest of that would be 0 plus 0i, which is not necessary to write. That's the same as just 8.